Guys, all the cars that you see in these videos are for sale on my website, www.woodsandbarclay.com. Enjoy the video. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is part 4 of the 1983 300 CD. Tonight I'm just changing some fluids, but this video is going to be changing the dimmer switch or the potentiometer in the gauge cluster. So I'll show you how to get the gauge cluster out, how to get the old broken potentiometer or dimmer switch out of there and install a new one. Really easy, just a couple of things you need to do. So let's go ahead and get into the video. Right now I'm playing with my new, this is my Motive Products Power Bleeder. 0109 is the European version. And you can see right now, I've got the gauge at 10 PSI. And we have it connected to the master cylinder. And I've filled it up with fresh brake fluid because I've already pushed it through one time and got the old fluid out of there. So it's pressurizing the system. Normally I do this by gravity, a gravity bleed method. But let me show you guys this. This is pretty cool. So I just have my cup here and we have our hose hooked to the brake bleeder. We go and crack this loose and you can see the bubbles come out of here. There we go. Isn't that cool? And we just bled the brake system. See, it pushed all those bubbles out. You heard the gurgling noise. And now we have fresh fluid coming out of there. So this video is not about bleeding your brakes. I'm just showing off my new Motive Power Bleeder. So watch the, let's see if we can catch the bubbles and you can hear it. There it goes. And all the air just came out of the system. That's what that was. Well, while I got it up on the lift, putting the wheels back on, let's go ahead and change the oil while we're at it. And then we will get to the gauge cluster, I promise. And guys, when you're changing your oil, make sure you put on a new crush washer on the oil pan bolt. You also want to put a new gasket around the oil filter housing lid. Sometimes when you're getting the oil cap off, you have to push some hoses and lines out of the way. Especially this heater core line right back here in the back. There we go. You got to kind of get around that. And here's that, when you're changing your oil, here's that old gasket you want to get off of there. Put a new one on and just rub some oil around the new one before we slip it on. And let's stick this guy back in here. And clean off the oil filter cap a little. There we go. Now guys, when you're putting these nuts back on the oil filter housing lid, you do not crank these down because those are studs. There you go. Just snug it up, guys. That's it. All right, let's get some Rotella 15W40 in here. This is the stuff I use, guys. Just good old Rotella. This is T4. It's non-synthetic, just good old dinosaur engine oil, 15W40. All right, our level is good. Let's go ahead and circulate it through the engine. Let it run for a few seconds, then we'll shut it off and let the oil settle, and then we'll check our levels. Also do the power steering fluid and flush the radiator fluid, flush the coolant, and pretty sure this transmission was already serviced. Let's go ahead and check this. Okay, look at that. That is bright red fluid. This transmission has already been serviced. As I suspected when I did the inspection, that gasket was new on the transmission pan. So transmission's good. So let's go ahead and get after the rest of these items. We're also going to check the air filter. Okay guys, let's move to the gauge cluster and the potentiometer, or the dimmer switch. Now first thing I want to do, the speedometer cable runs right up through the firewall. I want to get down there and unclip the retainer bracket. That way we can pull that cable a little bit further into the firewall when we're removing the gauge cluster and get our hand behind it to unscrew it. I'll show you how where that clip is attached. Let me lift the car up in the air. All right guys, we're under the car. There's the transmission. You can see there's the clip right there. Just want to pinch it and push it out of the bracket. I'm gonna have to stop recording so I can use both hands here. But there's just a little bracket. We want to pop that loose so we can push the cable through a little bit. Okay, there you go. See, we have it loose. Now, these are often long gone on these cars because they were broken by people years ago. This car is in such good shape that everything's still intact. We also have the clip right here that I popped loose. See, that normally clips right there to hold the cable in place. So I've popped that loose, and now we have a little bit of play in the speedometer cable, and we can more easily get the gauge cluster out. Okay, here we have just an old parts 300D gauge cluster. And what we're looking at here, see if I turn it up like it's in the car, see these little slots right here? They're on both sides of the gauge cluster, so about 3 inches up from the bottom. And what we want to do is stick our tool in here. This is 140 part number, it looks like. 140 589 023300. But this tool we can stick in the gauge cluster and then turn it sideways, and it will hook into those slots right there. There we go. And it will allow us to pull the cluster out. So that's what we're going to do now. Now guys, this cluster has probably never been out of this car. So we just want to be very careful. All right. There we go. Perfect. All right, we got this cluster loose. We want to pull it forward. And there we go. Now we're pulling that cable through the firewall a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery, because if not, sometimes when you're unplugging the clock, if that cable like touches up against something, it'll ground out and pop your fuse. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery now. Okay, and once this cluster is out, if we peek around here, let's see. All right, that is our speed sensor for the cruise control. And there's our clock right there. And these other ones, there's a bulb that plugs in right there. Okay, there we go. There's the speedometer that I need to get access to unscrew right there. I think that's for the RPMs, that plug right there. So I'm going to unplug all those and then slide this out. And it's clear that this has never been out, but we have to do this to fix that potentiometer for the dimmer switch to cause all of our lights to correctly light up here and on the gauge cluster. All right, there's the speedometer cable. And there we go. Now once that's loose, you have tons more room. See, I just pulled out the cluster. And now we're going to need to get a 10 millimeter to undo the oil pressure line. It is an analog line that's connected, and actually oil comes up to the back of the cluster. And all right, that's the main power plug I just connected there. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's like a 14-pin main power plug. All right, let's see if I can show you guys the oil pressure line. Okay, there it is. Right there. See the copper colored? It's like a brass fitting down there. That is the 10mm line that I need to unscrew. Now guys, it's very important once you unscrew this oil line, do not crank your car. Because if you crank your car, you know, whatever, how many ever PSI or 2 bar of oil pressure is going to shoot straight out of that all over your interior. And it's not fun when that happens. There we go. All right, now our cluster can come right out. And guys, this is a 50,000 mile cluster that has never been out of the car. So I'm about to show you guys what a perfect factory original cluster looks like. What you see here is an original gauge cluster. First thing I want to point out, look how bright all the original painted needles and numbers are. There's no sun fading at all. I'll wipe off the lens. It's got some gunk from, you know, the last 40 years on there. But let me show you this potentiometer or this dimmer switch. Wow, look at that. Guys, that's what they look like when they're brand new. Look how nice that is. So there's the oil line, we're connected. There's that speed sensor I struggled with to get off at the end. There's our RPM. There's our little clock connection right there. And then here's the bulbs for like glow plugs, and I think the other one might be battery or alternator warning light. Or it could be seat belt, I can't remember. But there is our potentiometer. And that is it. Now you just jiggle it a little bit and it'll come off there. All right, now let me show you what fails on these, because this one's not working. And it's like this on every one of them, guys. It's very rare. There you go. See the spring there? See that corrosion and gunk up in there? Yeah, there we go. See how that's a corroded leg right there that rides on the spring? That's just what fails, guys. Now, what a lot of people do is jump a little wire from here to here around these 2 contacts, or just jump a wire between those 2 contact pins there, and that just makes your lights always at full bright. But I like to fix them the correct way so we actually have a dimmer. So we'll set this aside, and here's our, let's see, 000-542-362564. It's a genuine Mercedes part. It's made by VDO. And this makes all the power passes through this in order to get to your window switch lights, your antenna button, your defroster button, all the buttons on the center console. So guys, all we do, so this leg right here has a flat edge. See that flat edge lines up. Here we go, lines up with the hole right down in there. Here we go. And we just push it back on there. Now we want to turn the knob on the other side. See how smooth that one is? So you can get it focused. There we go. See how smooth that is? That's when they're working correctly. So let's put our screw back in here and install it back in the car. That's all we have to do here, guys. You just want to take your time when you're doing this so you don't break anything. Don't force anything. All right, that's it. Let's go get this back in the car. First, I'm going to go ahead and wipe off the lens before we put it in there. This looks so nice. And I like to wipe one direction. Don't go in circles like Mr. Miyagi, because you'll put little scratches over everything. Just wipe in one direction. There we go. That is beautiful. All right, now I'm going to connect the main power, and then we're just going to test everything before I connect the rest of it. Okay guys, I'm back in the car. Bam. See if the camera will adjust here. And we have lights. Now let's try our dimmer switch. Come on, my camera's not really adjusting here. All right. Boom. See how our lights correctly adjust? Now let's look down here. Boom, there we go. We have all the lights. These are the ones along the center console. And down here, see if you guys can see that. These are our Windows switches. It's very hard to see because the camera doesn't pick up well, but I'm going to go ahead and dim it. See, I just turned them off. Now I turned them all back on, and you can see the climate control. Now they're off. Now they're all back on. So we have gauge cluster, all the switches on your console, all the climate control buttons, the shift selector, and the Windows switches. There we go. And of course the Becker radio, that's powered separately. All right, let's get some light back in here. Okay, got the lights in the shop back on. Mission accomplished. Dimmer switch works, all that lights up. What we were looking at, these lights here, and all these lights here. So let's go ahead and get everything reconnected and push the cluster back in. All right guys, I've got everything plugged back in. You can see the gauge cluster, I've just loosely pushed it in. I verified that everything's working, connected, including the clock. I got everything hooked up. And then to put them back in, all you do is push them in there. And there's a rubber, like a thick rubber band around the cluster. And that rubber band is what grips and holds them in place. And there we go. That is now fixed. All right, so that's going to be it for this video. This is a little shorter than normal. In the next video, we're going to finish doing fluids and filters like power steering fluid. Also, I want to remove the fuel sending unit from the tank and disassemble that to make sure it's not all clogged up with gunk. And then we're going to install we're going to install the rear sway bar end links, then the thermostat, and also I'm going to put in a Bluetooth Becker radio. So over here, this is the identical Becker radio that is in the car right now, but I've already sent this one off and had Bluetooth added to it, so that way you can stream you can stream from your phone to the radio. And that's the Becker 612. So that's identical. There we go. That's identical to the Becker 612 that's currently in there. So we're just going to take that one out and install the Becker 612 that I've already added Bluetooth into. So that'll be it for this video series, and we will see you in the next video. Take care.